Stop whatever you're doing right now because I'm about to show you something that will fundamentally change how you experience pain for the rest of your life. Not physical pain, but something far worse. The psychological wounds that people inflict on you every single day. 3 days ago, I watched someone experience complete emotional devastation. A person they trusted for years, someone they considered family, betrayed them in the most calculated way possible. They saw it coming. They felt it building. But they had no defense system. No psychological armor, no framework to protect themselves. So they absorbed the full impact of that betrayal, and it destroyed them. Not temporarily, permanently. They'll carry that wound forever because they never learned what I'm about to teach you. Most people go through life completely exposed, psychologically naked, emotionally vulnerable. They think being open and trusting makes them good people. They believe showing their wounds proves they're authentic. They're convinced that vulnerability is strength. And while all of that sounds beautiful in theory, in practice it makes them targets. Easy prey for anyone who understands manipulation psychology, power dynamics, and emotional warfare. You've been hurt before. Maybe it was betrayal by someone you loved. Maybe it was humiliation by someone you respected. Maybe it was abandonment by someone you needed. Maybe it was manipulation by someone you trusted. And when it happened, you probably told yourself it won't happen again. I'll be more careful next time. I'll see the signs earlier. But here's the truth. It will happen again. Not because you're unlucky. Not because people are inherently evil. But because you haven't built the psychological defense system that makes you immune to manipulation, betrayal, and emotional attacks. 500 years ago, Niccolò Machiavelli decoded the exact mechanics of psychological invulnerability. He watched courts full of brilliant people destroy each other through emotional manipulation. He studied how the powerful protected themselves while the naive got exploited. He documented the precise differences between those who constantly got hurt and those who seemed completely untouchable. Today I'm going to give you his complete system. 8 psychological principles that will make you absolutely immune to emotional manipulation, psychological attacks, and interpersonal betrayal. This isn't about becoming cold or heartless or incapable of connection. This is about becoming strategically protected, intelligently defended, psychologically bulletproof. But I need to warn you before we continue. Once you implement these principles, you can never go back to naive trust. Once you see how manipulation actually works, you can't unsee it. Once you become psychologically invincible, people will notice you've changed. And they won't like it. Because the people who've been benefiting from your vulnerability will lose their access. The manipulators in your life will lose their power. The emotional vampires feeding on your reactions will lose their food source. Now I want you to drop this declaration in the comments. Nothing and nobody will ever hurt me again. This isn't just a comment. This is your commitment to building impenetrable psychological armor. Let's begin. Number 1. The expectation elimination. Here's the first brutal truth that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. The reason you keep getting hurt isn't because people are bad. It's because your expectations are unrealistic. Every single time you've been disappointed, betrayed, or let down, it happened because reality didn't match what you expected. You expected loyalty and got betrayal. You expected honesty and got deception. You expected consistency and got abandonment. You expected appreciation and got exploitation. But here's what nobody tells you about expectations. They're not reality. They're fantasies you projected onto other people without their consent or agreement. Machiavelli observed this pattern constantly in Renaissance courts. He wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, because everyone can see and few can feel." What he meant is this. People see what they want to see. They create elaborate expectations based on limited information. Then they suffer when reality inevitably contradicts their fantasy. Think about the last time someone truly hurt you. Before the hurt came the expectation. You expected them to act a certain way. You expected them to value you appropriately. You expected them to treat you fairly. You expected them to keep their promises. But where did those expectations come from? Did they explicitly promise those things? Or did you assume based on what you wanted to believe? Most emotional pain comes from this gap. The space between what you expected and what actually happened. The wider the gap, the more severe the pain. Expectation elimination is the practice of systematically removing all expectations from your relationships while maintaining appropriate standards. This sounds contradictory, but it's not. Standards are boundaries you enforce. Expectations are hopes you project. Standards say this is how I require to be treated, and I'll remove myself if that standard isn't met. Expectations say I hope you'll treat me this way, and I'll be devastated if you don't. Standards give you power. Expectations make you vulnerable. Here's how expectation elimination works in practice. Instead of expecting loyalty, you observe patterns of behavior and adjust your trust accordingly. Instead of expecting honesty, you verify information independently and maintain strategic information control. Instead of expecting consistency, you prepare for inconsistency and protect yourself from its consequences. Instead of expecting appreciation, you find satisfaction in your own standards regardless of others' recognition. This doesn't mean becoming cynical or assuming everyone will betray you. It means removing the emotional vulnerability that comes from hoping people will behave a certain way. The first piece of psychological armor is this truth. Expectations are vulnerabilities that others exploit. When you eliminate expectations, you eliminate a massive attack surface. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I observe reality without expecting fantasy. Number 2, the Detachment Protocol. Let me tell you about the most dangerous emotional mistake you can make. Getting attached to specific outcomes, people, or relationships to the point where their loss would devastate you. Most people think deep attachment proves they care deeply. They believe that needing someone shows how much they love them. They're convinced that dependence on a relationship validates its importance. They're completely wrong. Attachment isn't love. It's vulnerability disguised as connection. And it's the primary mechanism through which people hurt you. Machiavelli wrote about this principle in the context of political alliances. He observed that rulers who became too attached to specific allies made themselves weak. They couldn't adapt when those alliances failed. They couldn't pivot when circumstances changed. They couldn't protect themselves when their trusted allies betrayed them. The same principle applies to every relationship in your life. The more attached you become to any specific person, outcome, or relationship, the more power they have to hurt you. Think about your deepest wounds. The moments of maximum pain. What do they all have in common? Attachment. You were attached to a person who left. You were attached to a relationship that ended. You were attached to a future that didn't materialize. You were attached to a version of someone that never actually existed. That attachment turned loss into devastation. Without the attachment, the same loss would have been manageable disappointment at most. The Detachment Protocol is the practice of maintaining emotional independence from all people and outcomes while still engaging meaningfully. This is probably the most misunderstood concept in Machiavellian psychology. People hear detachment and think it means not caring about anything. It doesn't. Detachment means caring without depending, engaging without needing, connecting without requiring. It means your well-being isn't contingent on any specific person staying in your life. Your happiness isn't dependent on any specific outcome occurring. Your peace isn't conditional on any specific relationship continuing. Here's how the Detachment Protocol works. You engage fully with people while maintaining complete internal independence from them. You care about outcomes while remaining unaffected if different outcomes occur. You value relationships while accepting their impermanence without trauma. The Detachment Protocol operates on several key principles. First principle. Your emotional state is your responsibility, not anyone else's. If your happiness depends on someone else's presence, they control you completely. When you take full responsibility for your emotional state, you become free. Second principle. All relationships are temporary. Some last longer than others, but none last forever. Death, distance, or change eventually ends every connection. When you accept impermanence, you stop being destroyed by it. Third principle. You're complete as you are. You don't need anyone to complete you. Relationships enhance life, but don't create it. When you know you're whole alone, others can't break you by leaving. Machiavelli advised rulers to never become so dependent on any one ally that their loss would cause collapse. Wise rulers maintained multiple alliances. They never put all resources in one relationship. They stayed strategically flexible. You need to do the same with your emotional investments. Never make any one person so central that their departure devastates you. Never make any one outcome so critical that its failure destroys your peace. Never make any one relationship so defining that its end erases your identity. The second piece of psychological armor is this capability. You engage fully without depending emotionally. When you master detachment, people can leave without destroying you. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I connect without depending. Number 3, the information asymmetry. Here's a principle that will immediately reduce your vulnerability to manipulation by about 70%. Stop telling people everything. Every piece of information you reveal about yourself, your fears, your desires, your weaknesses, your plans. That's ammunition you're giving potential enemies. Machiavelli was obsessed with information control. He believed that the primary advantage in any conflict came from knowing more about your opponent than they knew about you. He wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." This wasn't advice to be deceptive. It was advice to be strategic about disclosure. Most people operate on the opposite principle. They believe authenticity means complete transparency. They think being real requires sharing everything. They're convinced that opening up proves trust and builds connection. Sometimes this is true, but often it creates vulnerability. Think about the people who've hurt you most deeply. How did they know exactly where to strike? How did they find your exact weak points? How did they push the precise buttons that caused maximum damage? Because you told them. You revealed your fears in moments of intimacy. You shared your insecurities in moments of trust. You disclosed your weaknesses in moments of vulnerability. You explained your triggers in moments of honesty. Then they used all of that information against you when conflict arose. Information asymmetry is the practice of knowing more about others than they know about you. This creates strategic advantage that prevents manipulation and reduces vulnerability to emotional attacks. The third piece of psychological armor is this skill. You know more about others than they know about you. When you maintain information asymmetry, people can't hurt you because they don't know where to strike. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I listen strategically and share selectively. Number 4, the emotional independence. Let me tell you about the most dangerous dependency you can develop. Needing other people's emotional support, validation, or presence to feel okay. Most people are emotional dependents without realizing it. Their mood is determined by how others treat them. Their self-worth is determined by what others think of them. Their stability is determined by whether others approve of them. This emotional dependence makes them incredibly easy to control, manipulate, and hurt. Machiavelli observed that leaders who needed emotional support from others became weak. They made decisions based on maintaining approval rather than achieving objectives. They avoided necessary actions because those actions might cost them emotional support. They became prisoners of their need for validation. The same pattern destroys regular people. Your friend treats you badly, but you tolerate it because you need their companionship. Your partner disrespects you, but you accept it because you need their validation. Your family exploits you, but you allow it because you need their approval. The need makes you powerless. Emotional independence is the state where your emotional well-being comes entirely from within. Other people's treatment of you becomes data, not devastation. Other people's opinions of you become information, not identity. Other people's presence in your life becomes optional, not essential. Here's the critical distinction. Emotional independence doesn't mean not caring about others. It means not needing others to feel okay about yourself. You can deeply value someone while being completely fine without them. You can strongly desire connection while being perfectly content alone. You can greatly appreciate validation while not requiring it for self-worth. Most people confuse emotional independence with emotional coldness. They think being self-sufficient means not caring. They believe being internally stable means not connecting. They're wrong. Emotional independence actually enables deeper, authentic connections because you're choosing to connect rather than needing to connect. When you need someone, your behavior toward them becomes strategic manipulation designed to maintain their presence. When you don't need someone, your behavior toward them becomes authentic expression of genuine care. Building emotional independence requires systematic training. First, you identify all the external sources you currently depend on for emotional stability. Your partner's affection, your friend's approval, your family's validation, your colleagues' respect, your social media's engagement. Then you systematically replace each external source with internal source. Instead of needing your partner's affection, you cultivate self-compassion. Instead of needing friends' approval, you develop self-trust. Instead of needing family's validation, you create self-acceptance. Instead of needing colleagues' respect, you build self-respect. Instead of needing social engagement, you generate self-acknowledgement. Machiavelli believed that rulers must be emotionally self-sufficient because dependence on others' emotions made them vulnerable to manipulation through emotional leverage. The same applies to you. I practiced building emotional independence deliberately. I spent time alone until being alone felt completely comfortable, not lonely. I made decisions without consulting others until my own judgment felt sufficient. I faced disapproval without defending myself until others' opinions felt irrelevant. I experienced rejection without pursuing reconciliation until validation stopped feeling necessary. This process wasn't fun. It was uncomfortable, bordering on painful. But it resulted in something invaluable: complete emotional independence. Now, when someone tries to hurt me through withdrawal of validation, it doesn't work because I don't need their validation. When someone tries to manipulate me through threat of abandonment, it fails because I don't need their presence. When someone tries to control me through conditional approval, it's powerless because I don't need their approval. The fourth piece of psychological armor is this state: your emotional well-being depends on nothing external. When you achieve emotional independence, people lose their primary weapon against you. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My emotional state is internally sourced. Number 5. The strategic distance. Here's something that will immediately improve every difficult relationship in your life. Stop trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed. Stop trying to convince people who don't want to understand. Stop trying to maintain relationships with people who don't value you. The reason these situations hurt you is because you stay engaged when strategic distance would protect you. Machiavelli had a principle for dealing with threats that couldn't be eliminated: strategic distance. If you can't remove the threat, remove yourself from proximity to the threat. Most people do the opposite. They stay close to people who hurt them, hoping those people will change. They maintain proximity to toxic relationships, hoping time will fix them. They keep engaging with destructive patterns, hoping something will shift. This isn't optimism. It's self-destruction through prolonged exposure. Strategic distance is the practice of reducing proximity to people, situations, and dynamics that cause you pain without necessarily ending those relationships formally. Sometimes the relationship isn't worth completely terminating, but it's also not worth the pain it causes at current proximity. Strategic distance solves this. The key to strategic distance is that it's not announced or explained. You don't tell people you're distancing from them. You don't justify or defend the boundary. You simply implement it quietly through behavior. Strategic distance has 3 implementation levels. Level 1: reduce frequency. See them less often. Respond less quickly. Initiate less contact. Level 2: reduce depth. Keep conversations surface level. Don't share personal information. Don't engage in emotional topics. Level 3: reduce investment. Stop expecting anything from them. Stop trying to change them. Stop caring about their opinion. The 5th piece of psychological armor is this skill: you control proximity to pain sources. When you master strategic distance, people can't hurt you repeatedly because you limit their access. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I control who has access to me. Number 6. The preemptive strike. Here's a principle that sounds harsh, but will save you immeasurable pain. When you see betrayal coming, don't wait to be the victim. Act first. Most people see warning signs of betrayal, manipulation, or exploitation, but do nothing. They hope they're wrong. They give the person benefit of doubt. They wait to see what happens. This passivity guarantees maximum damage when the inevitable betrayal occurs. Machiavelli was explicit about this. He wrote that injuries should be inflicted all at once so their bitterness will be felt less sharply. What he meant was, if conflict is inevitable, it's better to control its timing and execution than to be on the receiving end. The preemptive strike is taking protective action before you're hurt rather than defensive action after you're hurt. This doesn't mean attacking people. It means protecting yourself when you detect incoming threat. Let me give you specific scenarios. You notice your business partner is secretly meeting with your competitors. Passive approach. Hope you're misreading the situation. Wait to see what happens. Get blindsided when they leave and take your clients. Preemptive strike approach. Immediately secure your client relationships independently. Document everything. Prepare legal protection. If they're planning betrayal, they'll find it much harder to execute. If you're wrong, you've simply protected your interests. You see your romantic partner showing signs of emotional withdrawal and increased secrecy. Passive approach. Try harder to please them. Hope things improve. Get devastated when they suddenly announce they're leaving. Preemptive strike approach. Emotionally detach. Prepare for separation financially and logistically. Stop investing emotionally. If they're planning to leave, you're already protected. If you're wrong, you've simply become less dependent, which is healthy anyway. You realize a friend is gossiping about you to others. Passive approach. Confront them hoping they'll stop. Continue trusting them with private information. Get hurt when they betray bigger confidences. Preemptive strike approach. Immediately stop sharing anything personal with them. Shift to surface-level friendship. Information control them completely. If they're untrustworthy, you've limited damage. If you're wrong, you've simply been more careful. The preemptive strike operates on one principle. When evidence suggests someone might hurt you, assume they will and act accordingly. Don't wait for proof. Don't give benefit of doubt. Don't hope you're wrong. Protect yourself immediately. Machiavelli observed that rulers who waited for betrayal to fully manifest before responding usually lost everything. Those who acted on early warning signs maintained power even when betrayal occurred. This sounds paranoid, but it's actually just strategic. You're not attacking anyone. You're protecting yourself based on risk assessment. Most people get this backwards. They think trusting until proven untrustworthy is virtuous. But that approach guarantees you'll be hurt by everyone who's untrustworthy because you wait for proof that comes through them hurting you. The alternative is trusting cautiously and withdrawing trust immediately when warning signs appear. This means some trustworthy people might not receive full trust immediately, but it also means untrustworthy people can't hurt you. The trade-off is worth it. I learned this principle through painful experience. I saw betrayal coming multiple times in my life, but ignored the signs because I didn't want to believe people would actually do what the evidence suggested. Every time I paid the price. Now when I see warning signs, I act immediately. I protect information. I create distance. I secure vulnerable areas. I prepare for the worst. Sometimes I'm wrong and the person was actually trustworthy, but I'm protected either way. Sometimes I'm right and the person does exactly what I suspected, but I'm prepared and the damage is minimal. The preemptive strike has 3 stages. Stage 1, detect. Watch for warning signs, behavior changes, pattern breaks that. Suggest incoming betrayal or manipulation. Stage 2, assess. Evaluate whether signs are strong enough to warrant protection. When in doubt, err on side of caution. Stage 3, act. Immediately implement protective measures without announcing them or explaining them. The 6th piece of psychological armor is this capability. You protect yourself before threats materialize, not after. When you master preemptive striking, people can't blindside you because you saw them coming. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I act on warning signs immediately. Number 7. The reputation fortress. Let me tell you about a weapon people will definitely use against you. Your reputation. They'll try to damage it through gossip, lies, and strategic character assassination. If you don't know how to protect your reputation, these attacks can devastate your life. Most people think reputation protection means defending yourself against every accusation. They try to control what everyone thinks. They attempt to correct every false narrative. This approach fails because you can't control everyone's opinion, and the effort to do so makes you look desperate. Machiavelli had a completely different approach to reputation management. He believed your reputation should be built on a foundation so strong that attacks bounce off it. He wrote, "Let no one impute to me any saying that is not honorable." What he meant was build a reputation so solid that accusations seem absurd to anyone who knows you. The reputation fortress is a proactive defensive system that makes character attacks ineffective through accumulated credibility rather than reactive defense. Building a reputation fortress requires systematic credibility accumulation. First principle: always do what you say you'll do. Every kept promise adds a brick to your fortress. Second principle: document your integrity. Keep records of your actions. Third principle: build witness network. Cultivate relationships with credible people who've observed your character. Fourth principle: never lie, ever. The 7th piece of psychological armor is this structure. Your reputation is so solid attacks bounce off. When you build a reputation fortress, people can't hurt you through character assassination. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My actions build unassailable reputation. Number 8. The self-sufficiency system. Here's the final and most important principle. The ultimate protection against being hurt is needing absolutely nothing from anyone. When you're completely self-sufficient, people lose all leverage over you. Most people are vulnerable because they depend on others for money, validation, stability, security, or happiness. This dependence creates leverage that others use to control, manipulate, and hurt them. Machiavelli was obsessed with self-sufficiency. He believed that dependency was the root of all political weakness. The ruler who needed foreign aid could be controlled by foreign powers. The ruler who needed popular support could be manipulated by mob sentiment. The ruler who needed nothing was truly free. The same principle applies to personal life. The self-sufficiency system is systematically eliminating all dependencies that give others power over you. This is probably the most difficult but most powerful principle. Financial self-sufficiency. You don't need anyone's money. This means no dependence on partners, family, or employers. You have skills, resources, and savings that make you financially independent. Emotional self-sufficiency. You don't need anyone's validation. This means your self-worth comes entirely from internal standards, not external approval. Social self-sufficiency. You don't need anyone's presence. This means you're completely comfortable alone and relationships are chosen, not needed. Practical self-sufficiency. You don't need anyone's help. This means you can handle life's challenges independently without requiring rescue. When you achieve true self-sufficiency across these dimensions, something remarkable happens. Nobody can hurt you anymore. They can't hurt you financially because you don't need their money. They can't hurt you emotionally because you don't need their validation. They can't hurt you socially because you don't need their presence. They can't hurt you practically because you don't need their help. Building self-sufficiency requires systematic capability development. Financial self-sufficiency means building skills that make you employable anywhere, creating multiple income streams, living below your means, building substantial savings. The goal is complete independence from any single financial source. Emotional self-sufficiency means developing internal validation systems, creating self-worth from achievements, not opinions, building self-respect through integrity, generating self-acceptance through self-knowledge. The goal is complete independence from external validation. Social self-sufficiency means becoming comfortable with solitude, building ability to enjoy your own company, creating fulfilling life that doesn't require others, developing complete comfort being alone. The goal is viewing relationships as enhancement, not necessity. Practical self-sufficiency means learning essential life skills, financial management, basic maintenance, problem solving, decision-making. The goal is never needing to be rescued by others. Machiavelli observed that the most powerful people in any society were those who needed nothing. They couldn't be bribed because they didn't need money. They couldn't be flattered because they didn't need validation. They couldn't be threatened because they didn't fear loss. This is the ultimate protection. When you need nothing, nobody can leverage your needs against you. I spent years building complete self-sufficiency, and it transformed everything. The process was difficult. Learning financial skills, developing emotional independence, becoming comfortable alone, building practical capabilities. But the result was worth every bit of effort. Now I'm completely protected because I need nothing. Someone can withdraw their money. Doesn't affect me. Someone can withdraw their validation. Doesn't affect me. Someone can withdraw their presence. Doesn't affect me. Someone can refuse to help. Doesn't affect me. I'm unbreakable because I'm self-sufficient. The eighth and final piece of psychological armor is this state. You need absolutely nothing from anyone. When you achieve complete self-sufficiency, people lose all power to hurt you. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I am completely self-sufficient. The complete protection system. You now have all 8 pieces of Machiavelli's psychological armor. Expectation, elimination. Detachment protocol. Information asymmetry. Emotional independence. Strategic distance. Preemptive strike capability. Reputation fortress. Self-sufficiency system. But armor only protects if you actually wear it. Starting today, you have a choice. Continue living exposed to everyone who wants to hurt you, or build impenetrable psychological protection. The choice is simple. If this video gave you the system to become psychologically invincible, hit that like button. Share this with someone who's tired of being hurt. Subscribe because this is just the beginning of your transformation. Remember the title of this video. Nothing and nobody will ever hurt you again. That's not a promise. It's a prediction. When you implement these 8 principles correctly, you become psychologically bulletproof. Not because you're lucky, not because people stop trying to hurt you, but because you've built defenses they can't penetrate. Stop being vulnerable. Start being invincible.